Hi everyone, we are continuing on our portrait basic series and we are going to talk about do's and don'ts of painting hair today. Now hair is an extensive subject with various textures and colors, so we are going to focus on dark, straight and wavy hair today. But before we get started, I want to apologize in advance that I did not realize while shooting the video that the camera and the light angle are kind of getting into a weird coincidence and it is causing a lot of glare. So I think parts of the video are not that clearly visible because of the glare. I am trying my best to use my words to explain what I'm doing. I hope that works out for you. If not, let me know. I would do this video once again in that case. Thank you.
We're going to start off with the don'ts. Typically what people do when they're painting dark hair is block the whole area with one solid color. A very dark color, it's a blue, black, brown combination. And what is the problem is that they use haphazard brush strokes in every possible direction. And that is the problem. You have to use, when you're painting hair, you have to go in the direction of the growth of hair. Just like fur or feathers, you have to follow the direction of the growth of hair. So in case of long hair, it has to go either from up to down or from down to up and follow the direction of the hair. You cannot make the brush strokes in any particular direction. In that case, even if you add multiple layers on top of it, it will still show like one block of color with paint going in all direction and not show like hair. The next common mistake is that once you put the block of color in, people try to paint each and every single strand of hair on top of it. What that looks like is more like dirty or wet hair and not realistic hair. We should probably think hair more in terms of clumps and clusters instead of single strands. Now I'm going to paint a block of dark brown hair first. Or by a block I mean kind of like a lock of hair that would be in the front of the hair. So what you can see is that first I added in the really dark areas and then I came back with a little bit lighter tones of yellows and mixed with browns for the lighter areas. Once I established the lights and darks in general, I'm coming back and trying to blend the starkness of the trying to blend the bright lights and the darks a little bit, and then I will come back later once the paint is a little bit dry with the lighter overlays and finally with the highlights. As usual, for highlights you have to keep it at a minimum so that it shows the prominence of highlights and not look like a bold patch of light color. Try to always think in terms of contrast in case of hair as well. Make the darker areas really dark and the lighter areas light, and that contrast will make it look like natural realistic hair. Now that the paint is partly dry, I'm adding in more paint. Now moving on to a top knot bun in black hair. Now black hair is a little bit tricky in the sense because you have to use the color black. I do not really suggest using a lot of straight black paint just because black is a very flat dull color, so a whole area full of black may look very dull and flat, and that is not what we are looking for while painting realistically. So when painting black hair, I would suggest pull in a little bit of blues or browns just to make sure that it is not flat black. That will also help when you are painting the really dark areas. Those you can keep in like really dark blue black, and the lighter areas can be a little bluish gray, torrid gray mixed with a little Prussian blue with a little white maybe would work best for the mid-tone colors for black hair. Now make sure that your grays are not very gray, then it will turn into gray hair like an old person will have, and that is not what you're looking for. You're actually looking to paint black hair. And once again, the contrast between the lighter and darker areas is what really matters and what really will make your hair look natural. Now I am demonstrating painting dark brown hair, like auburn hair, what you probably would call it. And what I first do when I'm painting hair, most often what I start off with is putting in the dark, really dark areas, and kind of with the dark lines I try to draw out the general layout of hair, so I know where my real dark areas would be once I draw out the darker areas with the paintbrush like this. And then I come back with the mid-tone layer, and then the next thing that I do is the overlays, and finally I come back with the highlights. And the auburn hair, I'm mostly using raw umber mixed with a black. Sometimes I'm using a little bit of yellow ochre to it when I'm trying to make it a little bit lighter. All this while I was using acrylic paint, but now I have switched to oil paint. Obviously oil paint has much more glare, so the glare that I was talking at the beginning of the video is now really bright, and I don't think what I'm trying to do, every brush stroke that I'm making, and that is causing a lot of effect on how the hair is looking like, is really visible here. And I absolutely apologize for the lack of proper visuals with my dialogues, and I probably will have to redo this video once again because of this tremendous glare. I apologize once again. So going back to the hair, once I have laid the overlays, I come back and darken some of the darker areas. Once I darken the darker areas, then I know how the contrast should look like, and then it is time to put in some of the highlights. I almost never use titanium white straight up from the tube for the bright highlights in case of hair, even in case of light hair. The reason being is that as soon as you use white, it might look like really bright, the really bright white may look like gray hair, and which is not at all what our intention is in this case. Now the last demonstration is completely black dark hair, and here again I started off with the sketchy lines of black and blue. Notice that I am using a lot of Prussian blue mixed with my black so that it does not look like a flat black. And on top of, if you're using blues to paint your black hair, remember not to use yellows, then your hair would have a greenish tinge, which is not a natural color that you would generally see in your hair. Hair has a tendency of reflecting the light, what is surrounding it. So obviously if there is some disco lights or lights that are red or green, yes, there can be some red or green reflections, but typically that is not the color that you see in hair. So make sure that whatever color you're using for highlights is looking natural. And there comes always the recommendation to use a reference photo. That ways you will know much better what colors to use, where to put the lights and darks, and not go by assumption. Because when you're painting realism, when you're trying to do realistic portraits, realistic hair, realistic anything in a portrait, then you have to go by what it actually looks like, what is the real picture. And in that case, a reference photo is a must. Painting from memory, painting from your ideas doesn't really work. So there is all the 5 different do's and don'ts paintings of hair that I demonstrated. Hope you learned a thing or two. Please let me know if this video worked out or if I need to redo it. And do not forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.